Hi everyone, welcome to Spirit Coffee Talk. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we dive into exploring all the ways that you can clear your space in your home, from sage to Palo Santo to white light, incense, even going to find somebody else that can do it for you, like a modern day shaman. We talk about all of it, so grab your coffee or tea and join us for some great insights. Welcome everyone to Spirit Coffee Talk. I'm Ginette and with me is Elyse Catherine, and we are missing Lisa Richmond today, but she is away filling her soul, and we completely support that. So it's just Elyse and I today. And we're going to talk about clearing spaces, how to clear spaces. We had some questions about that after last week's talk on Hauntings Explained. So we're going to talk about how we clear our spaces, the different ways that we can, and I have a plethora of tools to show you guys here, so we're going to dive into that. Any comments before I dive, Elyse?
No, I think I'll preface everything that, well, I said no, and here's a comment. No, yes. One thing that was just kind of coming into mind was whatever tools, techniques, things that we share. For me, I always go by like what I feel drawn to. So it's like, it's not, there's one right or wrong way. There's not one thing you should always do or one thing you should never do, or, it's really up to each person and what you feel intuitively drawn to. So it's great to have kind of a plethora of options and do what feels right for you.
Exactly. I love that because sometimes it changes, right? Like sometimes I'm like, no, I need to do it this way. And then other times I'm like, no, I have a strong pull to do it this way. So I want to show you guys four different kind of standard tools. And then we can talk about white light after too. That would be maybe the fifth, or that one can be a part of everything, but it also is a good standalone. So first of all, everybody's pretty familiar with sage. People saying, I need to sage my house. I need to sage my house. So you can get sage bundles, most often kind of come like this. You can get loose sage as well. So this is just loose sage that I would pick some pieces off, roll them into a little ball, and then put them in something I could burn, whether it be like a ashtray type thing. Some people use a shell, whatever you want, you can do that with loose sage. And if you are seriously needing to clear a space, you can get really big sage bundles, as you can see the difference. This one will burn for a long time. You can put them out. These smaller bundle ones like this are easier to put out. You can see I've already used it and then I put it out. It's easier to put it out and have it stay together. These ones start to fall apart pretty quickly. If I was saging a whole property, I would use one of these most likely. But again, I have used these to sage a house when I've really needed to, if I really feel like I need more. But sage is a great one. A lot of people really prefer the smell of sage. I actually don't prefer the smell of sage. To me, I don't know, I don't really like the smell of it, but I know that there's a lot of power in the energy of sage. And really what it is it brings in the energies of the ethers to help shift the energy in your space. So it's quite beautiful that way. One of my favorite though, the next one I want to talk about is Palo Santo. So it is this wood that comes from South America, and you can get it in all kinds of different shapes and sizes. You can tell I've used this one a lot. This one is my favorite tool personally. I love the smell of Palo Santo. You just light it, and again, as it kind of burns, we'll talk about how you can move around the room and stuff, but Palo Santo is a really easy one to find as well. I prefer this one, but to each their own. The next thing you can use is incense too. Any kind of incense that you have, whatever your favorite brand is, your favorite smell, it can be any smell, but again, it connects to the ethers through the smoke, which helps to clear energy. So incense is another great one. And then the last one that I want to offer is if you have a sacred oil, sometimes you can have, there's lots of different sacred oils you can get. You sometimes have to go to a specialty shop I know of a great one in Egypt. Uh, but there are different ones. Like I know Vancouver has one. You can find them, and they're kind of like sacred oils. A really good oil is rose oil. This one is like pure rose oil. You can get different kind of clearing oils. There's amber oil as well. And what you can do is you can put those kind of on your doorway or like a little cross or circle on every corner of your room as you move through the room. So these are four main traditional, pretty easy to find ways to clear your space or tools to use. But let's talk about how we actually use them. So, Elyse, what do you do when you're saging? What's your process when you sage?
So before I get into that, actually, I just wanted to mention with any sort of sage or Palo Santo, things like that, that you're accessing, my recommendation, and this is a practice that, or something that I've really tried, and I haven't purchased any lately, so I don't have any great go-tos, but with sage, with Palo Santo, those are indigenous practices, right? They are from ancient cultures, history that, you know, we as settlers here didn't create for ourselves. And so what I would say with those two is always looking for ethically sourced. I know a while back, sage, it was just starting to be grown everywhere, and it wasn't actually coming from indigenous peoples, from indigenous cultures, from you know, indigenous sellers. So if you can find and do some research, depending on, because there's, you know, those are two that we referenced, but there's tons more, right? And so if you're using some sort of plant, some sort of wood, do some research. Google, like, where does this come from? Where can I find this from? The cultural space that it came from, supporting those sellers and those harvesters, and really understand the history of those practices, because sometimes we take them and we're like, hey, I'm just going to do this and I'm going to do that. And, you know, a lot of people use the word smudging, and that can actually be an appropriation of the indigenous culture if you're not understanding of what it is you're actually doing. So I just wanted to kind of put that caveat of do some research around what type of, especially plant and wood and those types of things that you're going to use, and see if you can find it from ethically sourced places, ethically harvested places, and see if you can get it directly from that culture that it comes from. Mm-hmm. So just that kind of side note. So for me, with sage, what I usually do is I like to open up my windows. And for me, I usually do, especially if I'm going to do my house, the whole house at the same time, right? So I like to just make sure I do everything at once, because you never know what's hanging around. So I like to open up all my windows. For some reason, for me, I start from top to bottom. So I start at the top of my house, do them upstairs, the main floor, and the basement. Open up all the windows that I can. And as I walk through the room, for me, I say a prayer or say an intention or something that I'm wishing to see come forth with that practice. So if I'm clearing the room, usually I kind of just wing it, and like whatever comes out, I just repeat it over and over and over again, walking around all the corners of the room. And I like to go around the windows. For me, I envision all of the energies that I don't want in the house moving out through the windows, through the open windows, or open doors, or whatever is available for you. And say the intention or the prayer, repeat it either in my mind. Oftentimes I'll actually say it, because I feel like the vibration of it coming out of my mouth verbally adds a little bit of extra oomph to it. And it'll be something like, what would I say? You know, with the sage, with the smoke, I clear this space, only that of the highest good, of light and love, are welcome in this space. And I just kind of repeat that or something like that over and over, moving through each corner. And I try to, as much as I can, track kind of the corners of the room, walk around, do around each doorway, and then move on to the next space. And I do from top to bottom. And then at the end of that, take a moment, say another little prayer, and thank energies, thank, you know, all of my guides, protectors, angels, all that good stuff, for clearing the space with me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's beautiful. I love that. My practice is really quite similar to yours, and I love what I'll usually do is I tend to open my windows after I've done it.
Mm.
which, I mean, again, you guys take it however you want, whatever feels right for you. But yeah, I sometimes work top to bottom, sometimes bottom up. Um, but I just make sure I hit every room, even the hallways, even the stairs, and I go to each, like I walk each corner or each wall of every room. And then I open the windows after to allow that kind of light and love and fresh air to come in. Um, and I think one thing to say is that if you prefer to say one thing the whole time, you totally can. There's times where I've done that where I'm like, please allow light and love to come into all these spaces in my home so that only the highest vibrations will reside in this home. Sometimes I'll say that over and over. Other times I will have a conversation with my guides, with spirit, as I'm saging, right? Like I'll have a conversation. I'll be like, guys, can you come help me clear this space? I'm feeling this, and I wish for it to be like this. And it ends up being just this conversation as I'm moving through my house, right? But I can feel this shift and this lightness of energy. So I find those to be really beneficial practices for clearing space. Now, once you've cleared space, you can help kind of solidify that clearing with different stones and crystals. Mm-hmm. Like selenite, for example, if you put selenite, you have one? There you go. You can tell it's a white one and it's very linear in it, like it has a lot of striations in it. You can put selenite in every corner of your home. So the four main corners of your home can create a really nice kind of grid energy of brightness. Selenite is a stone that you don't have to charge. It is self-cleansing all the time, kind of like citrine. You never have to charge it. But selenite is a beautiful charging source. Some people have a flat piece of selenite to charge their crystals on, but selenite itself is just constantly renewing and clearing. So some people will add extra selenite by their door as well. So that's a really beautiful thing. We do have a home blessing kit actually on Avalon Spirit under the Divine Ceremony kit. So if you guys are wanting something that's already all put together with the instructions, that's why we created it. But another thing you could add too is even tourmaline, black tourmaline. You can pair that with the selenite. Do you have one?
I have one in my windowsill.
Yeah, so yeah, go for it. You can put black tourmaline as well, and that's a very protective stone too. So if you're feeling like you don't need to just simply clear your space, but you wanted to clear it and like anchor it in positive light, you can reinforce that, yeah, with tourmaline. And so the two of them together are, yeah, there you go. The two of them together are very beautiful, balancing, harmonizing energies to create that safe space for you. So I find that's really helpful. Now,
yeah, we had some, we just had kind of a cycle of, we had some lower vibe energies that were coming into the house quite regularly. And so we went and picked up a handful of these just small black tourmalines to put. For some reason, for me, I've moved them around the house a few times, but I've put them in places where I felt like, there's something lingering here. Or even despite clearing, I'm just feeling a little extra something, putting these in. And then just recently I moved them to the windows. I'm not sure why, but I was like, they don't belong here anymore. They're going to go to the windows. So that's where they live now. So again, it's always about exercising that your own intuition around what feels right for your space.
Yeah, and I have also put extra tourmaline like in my son's room where a couple times there's been a portal that opened, and not extra tourmaline, but extra selenite. And by adding that, it stayed really consistent now. So like, again, feel what feels right. Like, we're just giving you ideas, but everything with spirit is so individual to your journey. And that's something that's really important to be said. So how about white light, Elyse? How do you do white light? So if somebody had no tools, or they used all of the tools but wanted to amplify with white light, what do you do?
So I'll say too, I'll share my own kind of practice, but for me, early on when I was starting out and I was like, I don't know, like what to say or what to do, look up like white light meditations on YouTube, or, find things if you're feeling like, because for me, especially when I was starting out, I would get really in my head about like, am I saying the right things? Is this, and I didn't necessarily know how to fully trust the intuitive guidance around the white light that I was using and getting. So you can find like white light clearing meditations and all sorts of things, right? So use the internet and always like use those things with discernment, listen to them, feel into them. Do they feel right? Because we don't necessarily know where they're coming from, but using those things as a starting point, if you're just kind of uncertain, or you're going to kind of get into your head a little bit, can be really helpful. For me with white light, I always like to ground myself first with it. So I'll start a little bit of a meditation, and it doesn't have to be, super in depth or intense or long. But I will imagine white light coming from the cosmos down through the crown of my head. I'll let it move through each of the chakras in the body, and then down through the soles of my feet, into the earth, wrapping around either a crystal or maybe the core of the earth, whatever, resonates for you. So I use it to ground myself first. And then depending on if I'll use white light to clear myself. Sometimes I'll imagine it coming down and creating a bubble around me. And that can be a good protective thing if you're going to a place where maybe you're going to feel overwhelmed, or there's a lot of energies, or you're just kind of feeling off, or maybe it's a certain person or group of people that you're like, I just don't always vibe with them, so I just don't want to take on their stuff. That can be a really useful aspect of white light. For spaces though, I imagine it, for me, it looks like smoke, and it doesn't look like smoke in any other way that I use it, except for when I'm clearing a space. It's almost like a cloud that kind of bubbles up, and I imagine it like bubbling up and filling the room. And I just visualize it. And as the white light moves through, it's like a sparkly cloud almost. And as it moves through the room, it's picking up and transmuting. It doesn't always look clearing. It looks transmuting to me. So it's like, let's say there felt like a heaviness or an energy in front of me. I would imagine and feel that white light and that kind of sparkly cloud like energy wrapping around it and transmuting it into maybe more white light, maybe transmuting it into something else. And I would just allow that to come through as it would. And same thing, I usually, for my house and my space, start from the top, whichever room I feel most called to, and then move my way down.
I love it. Yeah. It's so interesting to hear how it works for everybody else, right? For me, white light always comes through my heart space. So I feel like it connects from source, divine, creator, God, whatever your term is. It comes through me, but then it's like I see it burst out of my heart space, almost like Care Bears. You know when Care Bears are like
Care Bear countdown.
It feels like that light just shoots out from my heart space and then moves through, like hits every wall in whichever room I'm visualizing, almost like a prism, like how a prism will bend light and turn it a different way. And I just see it like shining through every space in my home, wherever I'm going. And I find that to be such a reassuring thing, especially when I get to be sort of a part of it. Like it goes from, through me and out, right? And I used to do this when I first started opening up to my gifts and lots of stuff was happening. Going to bed at nighttime was really creepy for me, like really creepy. And so one of my mentors actually taught me this, and it was hugely impactful. Every night I would go through my house, white light my children, my husband. Actually, my kids weren't born yet. But anyways, I would white light everything and everyone. And then I felt like I could rest peacefully and I could go to sleep. And I did that for years. And then over time, I felt I didn't need to because I could just settle into that feeling by a thought. It got easier. Mm-hmm. So I find any time that I'm dealing with a really heavy energy, and say I'm saging or using Palo Santo and it's kind of not quite working enough, then I will add in that white light. So the white light that you can bring through you, however you do it, if it goes through your body and down, if it just surrounds you or it comes from your heart space, it can be so powerful if you just allow it the space to come through. It's really powerful. So I mean, white light alone, if you really are believing in what's coming through, you can help to change a lot of spaces too.
Yeah. I also really like white light to set strong energetic boundaries. So again, for a while, there was a period of time where we just had a lot of energies coming into the house that I wasn't, super jazzed that they were around. And I was kind of working with how to shift them, what was going on. But at night, you're not welcome in my room, at all. And so every time I would walk through my bedroom door, I would imagine like this white light, like almost like dungeon door, like slamming shut behind me and just like, boom, it's blocked off. So, and it worked really well. It's funny because there was a space just outside in my hallway where I could just feel there was lots of energies there, and I was having a bit of a trickier time clearing them specifically. And as soon as I would walk into my bedroom, it was like, oh, I'm good. Like I could just feel the difference. And so I like to use white light as well if it's, and it's not even necessarily to protect from like, energies that you don't want around. But if it's like, oh, I'm opening up and I don't want spirits in my bedroom because it'll scare me. I'll wake up in the night and see them. And even if it's my grandma, it still might startle me. Set that boundary with white light to say, I don't wish to have any other energies in here. This is a no-go zone for spirits or energies or anything like that. And I find that works really well. It's like a door that you can close.
Mm-hmm. And the beautiful thing is you don't need a tool. You just need to open to the energy and believe it. And that's why I find that one, it's so empowering plus powerful, right? And so I want to talk to on one step further, right? Because I know you've had situations where you're not quite clearing it in your space. I've had situations where I'm like, it's not like I'm doing it, but I'm just kind of getting to it. We are so lucky at Avalon Spirit now to have Kevin Semeniuk, who I call him like a modern day shaman. And he's going to be on my podcast in December. He's also going to be featured on Avalon Spirit Evening, November 15th. So if you guys are curious about what he's about, he has a beautiful ability to move into those astral states and clear spaces. He can clear spaces like no other. It's so fascinating to hear him talk about it. So I'm really excited that he's on Avalon. So if you guys can't clear your own space, like you're doing all the things and it's not quite doing it, you can reach out to a third party shaman of sorts, energy clearer. Kevin is a tried, tested, true one, which is why obviously he's a part of Avalon. But if you know somebody else too, that's fine. But having that third party that can really step into those sacred dimensions and levels and really see what's going on and shift energies in there is huge. It it makes a difference. It really does.
Yeah, he was super helpful for me. We had a situation where a portal randomly opened up, and one night we were watching TV and a picture flew off the wall. And we were like, it scared us because it was like 11:30 and all of a sudden this picture comes flying off the wall. And we were like, what the heck? And then after that, and I thought, okay, that's strange. And then after that, there was just things happening. We were misplacing things. And one night I had I was feeling, it would often be when I was alone in the home, especially in the evening, I would feel like I was being followed and watched. And I just had this kind of like pesky energy, and I was clearing. And that's why we purchased the tourmaline, and I put it in certain places where I felt that this energy was hanging out, and I was, clearing rooms, and it wasn't quite working. It would kind of settle it, but then it's like, it would just pop it back up. And it was because there was this portal open that I didn't realize was there. And Kevin tuned into it and pinpointed exactly, I didn't say where the picture was or that even a picture had fallen off the wall, but he pinpointed, without being in my home, there's a portal that's opened between a window and a door. And sure enough, that is exactly where that picture was. And it was kind of a one-way street. So they could come in, but they couldn't come out. And so they were kind of enclosed and entrapped. And he did a wonderful job of clearing that. And it was like, oh, I can just breathe differently in the home again. I didn't have the willies. I didn't have the feelings of being watched. And so can't say enough good things about him.
Yeah. And what's neat too is with his offerings, he doesn't need to be in the space to do it. Like just how we tune in mediumistically to connect to spirits. Like we can tune into somebody through Zoom or on the phone. You don't have to be sitting in front of them because energy is not limited by geographical location. Same thing goes with his clearings. He moves up into that kind of mediumistic higher realm level and can see what's going on clearly enough to describe where it is, where the picture fell, like those things over and over and over. So I find it very comforting having someone who is very proficient in those realms to turn to if what I'm doing, which I feel I'm really proficient at it, but it's nice to have someone more.
Yeah.
Something more.
Yeah. I think too, another great time to have somebody else support you in that is if you're feeling fear around it, because oftentimes if there's things that are just, like we were talking about in the hauntings videos, right? It's that kind of feedback loop of there's the fear that we feel can sometimes block us a little bit from being able to tune into the love and light because, or the, the white light energy, because our brain really kicks in and we're like, oh, there's something there. And, and that was even happening to me. And we clear and tune into energies all the time, but it was just this kind of perpetual eeriness that I was feeling. And so sometimes that fear, or maybe the way that our brain is kind of kicking into things, can block us from really being able to open up and say, okay, I'm fully clearing this space and get it to a place where it's what you need it to be. And so that's where sometimes too, having that third party person who's disconnected from it, right? They're not going to play into that fear and, or the energies that are coming forward with that experience or whatever is present in the home.
Yeah.
And they can kind of do that from a disconnected place, which can be helpful too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And two, it's not about fighting with a dark energy or like tension. It's actually about shining them with so much love they either transmute and transform into the light, or they are no longer able to be in that frequency. And like, I know that's where Kevin's work comes from, a state of love. It is not a state of fight. I'm going to fight these thing. Like, it's all about walking in there energetically, sussing it out. And then he brings in this huge team of guides, angels, all ascended masters that he works with all the time. And then it's like finding them and transmuting them and doing, like, it all comes from love. Mm-hmm. And that's where your energy should come from too. In any transmuting you're doing is coming from a place of love, from your heart space, mm-hmm. not from fighting and battling. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or that fear of like,
fear. Yeah.
Get out of my space. And for me, sometimes if there is an energy of, I like to clear during the day. I just do. Yeah, and now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, why do I do that? And I almost wonder if it's like, because my brain can't be like, oh, you're in a spooky corner, it's dark, or you're feeling something. It's, for me, I always default to clearing during the day because it's easier for me to be in that energy, versus if I'm feeling something a little funky and it's darkness, my brain might be like, ooh, and that fear energy can kind of kick up, or I'm not in the frequency that I want to be in to clear the space.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Well, I think we kind of covered it. I mean, there's lots of options, from just white light for yourself, through tools you can easily access, to all the way if you needed a modern day shaman to help you. And if you do want to connect with Kevin, I just want to say, go to avalonspirit.com under personal journey guides. That's where you'll find them, because we have a lot of stuff on the website, so you'll find them there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, this should help you guys all have some answers or something that you can do about it, because we don't just have to sit in an icky energy. We can do stuff to shift it, and that's where conscious choice comes in, and creating the realities we want to live in. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys all so much for joining us, and we'll be back next week with Lisa as well. And I hope you guys have a wonderful week. Do share, subscribe, like, all that goodness, and we'll talk to you guys next week. Bye.